Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by two guys that I had the amazing privilege of getting to know in person, and they are two of the sweetest, kindest guys you could ever hope to meet. They will make you laugh at every moment. I'm joined by the amazing Nick and Yerrty of the Toxic Icon Pod. How you doing today, gentlemen?
What up? What up?
I
Hey, I
literally
like that introduction, man. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry, man. Like, you guys already told me the check's in the mail, so now I got to wax your car a little bit. You know what I mean?
Hey,
So,
hey, there it is.
so if you guys watched our GhouliCon video, which amazing time at an amazing convention, we got to meet these guys and hang out with them and spend a little time with them and kind of dive into a little bit how horror started for them. But Ashley and I had such an amazing time meeting these guys. We wanted to do a full-on episode. That way, not only you guys could get to know them a little bit better, we could really put them on blast for all their links. That way, you guys can really become a part of their family as well. So, let's start with you first, Nick. Obviously, we're going to be talking about your first horror movie, but before that, can you tell people a little bit about you?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I feel that I have a broad platform of interest. I am big in the horror community, big in the haunted house community. I am a haunted house actor of 13 plus years. I'm also a marching band guy, big music listener. I'm also a special education teacher. So I'm involved in a lot of things. Try to stay busy, try to stay active, and any and everything that I'm interested in. I'm all about being all in, diving in as far as I can.
Right. And a big thing that he just said that I don't know if a lot of people understand. He was a marching band guy, and at one point he ran into this guy named Corey. He beat his ass, threw him over a bridge. That Corey guy met this guy named Michael, and it started the whole thing. So,
Whole thing.
But in all seriousness, man, like I know that what scare acting means to you, and I do want to talk to you both about that a little bit. But also being a special education teacher, and we talk about the horror community. We talk about scare acting, horror movies, stuff like that. But the real shit, working with children with special needs and being an influence and a leader for children to help them go out into the world even if they never leave home, to give them the confidence to be able to be who they really are, even though it's harder for them. That's very special, man. So thank you for the hard work you do. Above everything else that you do, that's amazing. That's tops. So thank you for the hard work you do with that, because I know it's not easy.
I seriously appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And you talked about music and how much you love music, but we got to talk about Yerrty and how much Yerrty likes music.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell people a little bit about yourself, Yerrty?
Yeah, so with that, first off, I'm a full-time father. Mm-hmm. Like, my daughter is my world. So I'm not a teacher like Nick, but I teach life lessons. Yep. Also, as far as the music, my time between the podcast and music is split down the middle because I'm a full-time artist also, and I tour all year. Like, I literally was on tour with my band, a part of the Mayday tour when GhouliCon happened. So I had to split for about 2 days, then come back on tour. And we got about 2 to 3 weeks off. And on the, I want to say the 17th, we're doing a festival in Boulder, Montana. So I'm like a multifaceted actor.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like you do, you're on tour. You're in a full-time band. You do scare acting. You do the podcast, and on top of that, being a full-time father. You know where your priorities lie. And we already talked about the next time we all get together, bringing the kids and just having an all-out good time with all the kids hanging out and stuff. So, we talked about you guys on a personal level. Now, I do want to dive into the podcast a little bit. Whenever we talk about podcasting, we always talk about the stresses and then the ups and downs of it. But Toxic Icon Pod, can you tell people a little bit about what you do and what you guys do over there?
Yeah. So
with that, I'll go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
You sure you want me to?
Go ahead, you can take it away, bro.
Oh, good. So Toxic Icon is a podcast that has kind of evolved. It's just hit a year of existence probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's taken us on a journey that we definitely didn't expect. Yerrty and I, so this is kind of the story that I tell people. So Yerrty and I have been scary acting together for a nice amount of time. And basically, we just decided that we were kind of in a haunted house that is very established, very well established, and they have their people that they go to for ideas and such. And that's fine. But Yerrty and I had ideas that we definitely wanted to throw on the drawing board, just in case, you need like a different scenic idea, you need a different media idea, any of those types of things, that we wanted to throw those ideas out there, but we did feel like we weren't being heard. So we really went, from that standpoint, and we just said, you know what, let's just start a podcast and kind of talk about all of our experiences, what we've been through, how we've trained ourselves up as actors in the haunted house, and just how to navigate the horror and haunt community. And then basically we had a name, and then 3 days later we had logos done, and we had an episode out within a week and a half, and it's just been like that ever since. We've been rolling.
Commitment, man. And you guys don't have to go far to find the podcast or these gentlemen on social media, because I have all of their links right down in the description. So make sure you're subscribing to the podcast. Make sure you're following them on social media so you can stay up to date on all the things they have coming up, because let's be honest, guys, it's going to be scare season right around the corner. So you're going to want to, if you're in the area, you guys do scares out in, you're kind of in the Midwest, St. Louis, Kansas City. Where do you guys work out of most of the time for your scare houses?
So it's St. Louis.
Okay. So I would make the trip out there, but for me to make a trip to St. Louis just to poop my pants is kind of a hard thing for me to. But if you guys are anywhere near the St. Louis area, make sure, like I said, you're following them on social media so you can see where they're going to be at. Let them terrorize you and pay them to do it, because that's what you weirdos like to do.
What we do.
For those of you that don't know, I don't like
tomorrow.
Scare houses, man. They scare the shit out of me. So I love you guys. I love what you guys do. I will support you from afar, but you won't see me inside the walls of the confines of the Scare house, man. It's just not something I can do myself.
Man, we're gonna have a whole Sledgehammer horror night at the haunted house. Then you gotta go through. Yeah, walk everybody through.
Let's do it. So what we'll do is we'll just make sure everybody knows I'm untouchable. Like, stay away from the guy with the ponytail. Like, just leave him alone.
But don't even look at him, y'all.
Yep. So obviously you guys know how much it means to me to have you guys here, and it's once we made that connection at GhoulieCon, I knew, I was like, I got to work with these guys as often as I can. But in order for me to do that, I need to know how horror started for you guys. So let's start with you first this time, Yerrty. Let's go back to the past. And Yerrty, your first horror movie was?
So my first horror movie was People Under the Stairs. I don't even remember how old I was. I know I was in elementary school, though. If I could just guess, in between 5 and 7, maybe. And just to see, at the time, I didn't know it was Ving Rhames. Fool, run!
Yep.
Like, and then the guy, like, I looked on the IMDb page. I don't know the guy's actual character name. He was just named Guy. That was the cannibal.
Everett McGill.
That dude was menacing. He was menacing. And then, like, it hit home because, like, this can realistically happen to people.
And the thing about Everett McGill, everything he's been in, like, he was also the werewolf in Silver Bullet, and, like, you see, every time you see Everett McGill, you're like, this guy's trouble, man. He's just a bad guy.
Yeah.
And, as a young boy watching Fool, that's somebody that you can relate to. You have a young protagonist that you're rooting for. Like, that's how I always felt watching movies as a young kid too. Like, I'm watching Fool and I'm like, yes, I got it. It's a young boy. Like, he's got to make it. He's got to be okay. So the depth that we can talk about the People Under the Stairs and what that movie means to all of us. But before we do that, I got to ask you, Nick, what was your first horror movie?
Mine was the original Pet Sematary. And I can't recall how old I was. I think I was a little older than Yerrty. But when I first saw it, so one thing about me when it comes especially to horror movies is I'm such an atmospheric person. sometimes I can really determine how I'm gonna feel about an entire horror movie just off the opening credits.
Yeah.
And the scene with the baby in the truck, while that was extremely disheartening, and like I still don't even like to see that scene nowadays because that is extremely realistic and it does happen. But that movie just kind of gave me an overall, like a Halloween,
Yep.
sort of feel. It really puts the emphasis on what fall is. Anything that Stephen King has touched, I mean, it's just going to take it up a notch even further. So that was definitely the first one for me and kind of where it started for me on the movie side of things.
And it's funny how I'm like, yeah, we're watching The People Under the Stairs, and we see Fool, and we're like, yeah, he's a little kid. We know he's going to be okay. And then I'm like, yeah, let's talk about Pet Cemetery. I'm watching Gage, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Oh, shit. What the hell just happened?
That's every time. Every time.
Yeah.
Right. And what I love about these two movies is while they are complete different ends of the horror spectrum, if The People Under the Stairs came out today, it'd probably get an elevated horror label. The fear that comes with both of these movies and the underlying issue of children that goes along with both of these movies is completely frightening and terrifying. So, do you remember who you were with the first time you watched Pet Cemetery, Nick?
That was with my dad. My dad was always a movie watcher. I mean, we'll always sit up and watch, like Jurassic Park or really just whatever's on TV. And I think it really happened at just a blip of flipping channels. It just happened to be on, and we caught it right at the beginning.
What a way. And another thing about Pet Cemetery that I love, it has the best song of all time made for a movie, in my opinion, with Pet Cemetery by the Ramones. I feel like that fits that movie so well. Like, it's such a great tune. So we know that People Under the Stairs, Yerrty, that started with you at quite a young age. But do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most from the movie?
So when the dad sicked the dog on food.
When what?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So when he sent the dog to go get food.
Yeah.
Because it's like, not only is this little boy that's I guess a thief, so to speak, not only is he inside the house, this dog's about to rip him apart.
Dude, and they are so damn scary. Like, not just mommy and daddy, but even the dog. Like when they see the dogs eating the guy's hand, and it was their friend that went in there.
Yeah.
Like, you're already scared of this dog. And Lester, I think it was. I saw Lester. He was looking more white than he ever was before. Like,
yeah, that's just like the dog from Don't Breathe. That dog, any moment in time, if that dog gets a hold of you, it's over.
That's a wrap. Like, that's a total wrap. And what I love about these movies is they purposely don't use pits for these movies because they already have that bad reputation. So they always use a dog that you like, whether it's this or, like you said, Don't Breathe. All these movies, you always hear them talk about how they purposely don't use those because they want a dog that doesn't look the part. And I think that's amazing. And the fear of being locked in a house with these people, that have done the most evil things, that do the most evil things. And we never know for sure if they're husband and wife or brother and sister. That's another terrifying part of this movie.
You know
Like,
what? I thought they were married, but now that you say that, I need to rewatch again.
Yeah, because at the end, the fool's grandpa's like, that brother sister combo you got messed up with, and he's like, brother sister, and he's like, yeah, that's brother and sister. So, like, there's always that divide in there of, are they brother sister? Are they husband wife? Like, we never know for sure. And I think that's another brilliance of Wes Craven. Wes Craven's like, I'll put the strokes out there. You can take it for what it is. Are they brother sister? Are they husband and wife? We don't know.
Okay, so look, here's a theory. What if they're related to the Sawyers?
Could be. Daddy has that apron, which is very Sawyer-ish. They're both completely off their fucking rocker. They have a lot of money. That's another thing about this movie that is so special is, the underlying theme of the rich getting richer and the poor staying poor, and gentrification of a neighborhood so that the rich can continue to get richer and kick people out of their homes. And I just love that Wes Craven went there with this movie. Like, he went there with, you know, the gentrification and try, like I said, even when you find out they robbed that liquor store, like mommy and daddy own all these houses, all these liquor stores, they have all this money, and it's still not good enough. They still, like, that's the reason Fool's breaking in there, is because they want to kick his family out on the street, and his mom's not going to get her cancer treatments. Like, it's just like, and that still goes today. They don't give a fuck. Like, as long as they're getting richer, who cares whose mom dies or who's on the street? So
right, so they know how to get you mentally, and they also know how to pull at the heartstrings with cancer treatment.
Right, and that's, like I said, Wes Craven really took a big swing on this movie and hit a home run. I love this movie so much, and with Pet Sematary, you know, there's a lot of impactful scenes throughout that movie as well. Nick, do you remember what scene it was from Pet Sematary that affected you the most?
That's a hard one. I think if I can remember right, there's definitely a scene where they're walking through the woods or walking toward where the actual Pet Cemetery is, and I feel like it has been a while since I watched it, but I feel like there was a point of realization of what's actually taking place, you know, in this story, and there was a point of when the thought really hit, where they realized that they were in a situation that was just extremely horrible. I think that one really sat with me as to what Yerrty said about movies being able to, you know, get you psychologically, but also pull the heartstrings as well. I feel like that happens a lot in horror, and it's not talked about a lot, because I think a lot of people love to highlight the intensity. To go away from Pet Sematary real quick, the most recent Saw movie, where he's a cancer patient at the beginning of the movie, that had me ready to ball out before anybody got, you know, messed with or had to deal with one of the traps.
Right. It had you empathizing with John Kramer.
Yeah,
exactly. I was feeling for him before anything. It was crazy. That was
when
wild.
a movie can do that, when a movie can make the villain the person you're rooting for, I think it's, you know, we just, you know, John Kramer with Saw, even though I'm getting blasted for this, Cooper and Trap, you know, you feel for the guy, you really feel for him, and you want him to win.
Thanos.
And you know, and you're talking about the scene in Pet Sematary. I think that Victor is one of the most underrated characters in that movie, Victor Pascal. You know, when you have him walking with Victor, and you're just like, Victor's trying to tell him, you know, don't go there, don't do it. He's such an underrated hero in this movie. He literally is like a guardian angel throughout the whole movie. And as a kid, scared the shit out of me. Victor is one of my core memories of just being truly scared. The scene where Victor walks through him, or when he's carrying his wife, he walks right through Victor, and Victor's like,
walks right through him. Yeah.
Oh man, that shit scared me so bad
every time.
So, obviously kills. We love the kills in horror. It's something we all live for. What would you say the most impactful death for you from Pet Sematary was?
Oh man, that's hard. Not even to be cliche, but man, all of the kills were top tier. They really were. All of them were top tier, and if I'm not wrong, Pet Sematary was 89 or 90 when that came out. Okay, so it was 89. So it was right at that turning point of going from 80s horror into 90s horror, where the kills were kind of over dramatized in a way, but they were supposed to be. That's what the style was right then around that time. So to me, all of those kills just kind of, you know, they get you hyped, but as soon as it happens, after it happens, you're like, damn. You know, like it makes you sit down and think about it for a second. So I've got a soft spot for that era of horror anyway.
And like, there's not very many. I think there's 5 deaths in Pet Sematary.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's only a few.
Yeah, if you count Zelda, the sister, I would go with 6, because you have the nanny, Zelda, Gage, obviously, Judd.
Judd's was pretty wild.
Yeah, Judd's was nuts. So you had the nanny, Zelda, the mom, Gage, and Judd. And then if you count Lewis at the end, Lewis. So
true.
It's still very, very heavy. So obviously now remakes, requels, sequels. It's kind of all the rage in Hollywood. And we have been hearing that Jordan Peele is going to produce the next People Under the Stairs film. So I got to know, Yerrty, are you excited for a Jordan Peele produced The People Under the Stairs?
I'm extremely excited because, for one, when it comes to not only horror, but making films as a whole, I believe that Jordan Peele is from the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, so like, when it comes to making movies, Get Out, obviously, that was his first one. He talked about things that us as Black people talk about all the time. You know, organ harvesting and things like that. Like, they those that specific family or cult, so to speak, they really wanted to be us. Like, they wanted to be in the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. They wanted to be stronger, faster. You know, these were all older people who were getting ready to die anyway.
Right.
But if you're a person who doesn't believe in that sort of thing, it'll make you think after you watch the movie, like, oh man, okay, like this group of people at my job, they might be like that. This quiet person that, you know, like it's a lot of social commentary that people talk about, but they're afraid to talk about.
And go ahead, Nick.
Oh, you sure? All right. To touch on what Yerrty was saying about Jordan Peele, I literally a couple of hours ago had a conversation with my barber about this. Sitting there, and he was talking to me about, because he supports our podcast, and he was asking, what did I think about Jordan Peele as a whole? And I told him that I felt like Jordan Peele is one of the best horror directors out there right now. His approach is completely different than most directors, but he has a way of, what I love about him is he has a way of tying in current events and pop culture and pulling a realism, you know, into the story, into the situation. But my barber said that he doesn't want Jordan Peele to touch People Under the Stairs because he feels like Jordan Peele is going to step too far outside of the realm of what People Under the Stairs is and create too much of a realism for him, that he feels like that might throw it off. But I don't know, how do you guys feel about that?
What I love about that is the fact that Jordan Peele's just producing it. So like he won't have anything to do with the writing or the directing. Exactly. You know, so it'll be just like Nia DaCosta's Candyman. You know, she'll have the reins, but Jordan Peele has enough confidence to put his money and time into it. That's what I love. You know, because I do think that even when he was doing Mad TV or Key and Peele, Jordan Peele had a way of bringing, like, one of the funniest sketches I've ever seen on any late night show is when they did the Mad TV Trapped in the Closet, the R. Kelly parody.
Yeah, that was
Trapped in the cupboard. You know, like, this shit was so funny, man. And even Key and Peele, the way that they were able to bring the social justices and stuff like that into the forefront while making it comedy. Now, he does that, like you were talking about, as Get Out. What I was going to say is, as a white guy, watching Get Out helps me to open my eyes and helps me to have that empathy for something that I don't understand or I've never had to go through. And that's something I've talked about a lot, not just on the podcast, but with friends in general. Like, it's hard for me to watch these movies because I've never had to go through anything like that. And I'm not saying that, I don't go through it, so it doesn't happen. Please don't misconstrue that, is what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is, when I've personally never gone through it and I have to watch it happen, it is really hard. Not as hard for somebody that's gone through it, obviously. But it just, as a human being with empathy, it makes you feel fucking sick to see
and it's eye-opening.
Yeah. So I love when they shine a light on these things. And the funniest thing to me is when people call horror movies woke. I think that's the biggest fucking oxymoron of all time. Because, I mean, like I said, look at Tales from the Hood from 1995. That movie is just as relevant today as it was just 30 years ago.
Yes. Yep. They talked about police brutality.
Black on black crime.
They talked about crime in the hood, which both still happen to this day. They talked about racist politicians. And then, of course, they all went to hell.
Right.
Oh, and then they talked about domestic abuse at home, which
and they also have the kid that gets
hardest.
That one and the one where you're actually seeing the real life pictures and videos of the KKK. Like, that shit's hard too, because like you're watching a kid and the mom get beaten. At the end of the day, you're like, you know what? It's hard to watch, but it's a movie. I know they're really okay. But when you see the real life footage of the KKK stuff and people getting burned and beaten, that to me is like, that's real. I can't, like, that's hard for me to stomach as a human being. So,
Yeah.
I've had an amazing time talking to you guys about the people under the stairs and talking to you guys about Pet Cemetery. But here for a second, I do want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. I'm going to start with you first this time, Yerrty. My little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you.
Dog.
What's your favorite scary movie, Yerrty?
Here we go.
What's your favorite horror movie of all time?
Okay, so for the longest, it was The Shining. I used to feel like nothing could top The Shining ever. But recently, I've been watching horror movies that I've never watched or horror movies that I've watched as a kid and came back to. So I gotta be honest, y'all probably gonna give me shit for this. But the 2013 Evil Dead.
Fantastic movie. Like, I've always said, I get it, guys. It's not a remake. It's in the same universe, but it's not a remake. It's telling a different story. It's still the best remake of all time. Like, it's such a great fucking movie. Yeah, no shit from me. I think that movie's absolutely flawless.
I thought it was very well done too.
That opening, you know, when they're burning that woman on the beam.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat your fucking soul.
Yes. Fucking love that.
Like that movie is top tier. I believe it's the perfect horror movie.
What I love about this movie, what I think is so smart about it, is it's not just a bunch of kids going out to the woods to party and get high. Like, they're trying to kick their sister off dope. You know, like, we're going to flush your heroin. We're going to make sure you can't do this shit no more. We're going to get you clean out here. You can't run away. Super smart. Super fucking smart. Fede Alvarez, what an amazing, amazing idea he had with that movie. So, well, we know your favorite, Yerrty, so I got to know from you, Nick. What's your favorite scary movie, Nick? What is your favorite?
I like that. So, I would have to say this. So, like I said earlier in this episode, I'm very much so an atmospheric guy. Me being a music listener, I tie a lot of the, favorite bands and albums and movies that I listen to as, I tie that into where was I when I watched this? What was I doing?
Sure.
So for me, I would have to say, and this is not one that I normally talk about, but this movie does feel nostalgic for me, and I love it. Would be 2016, The Boy. The Boy.
Oh,
Yeah, man. The Boy would probably be one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And why? Because for one, I love when horror movies tie in, Western and Central European backgrounds. I just love that. I don't know if it's the architecture of the buildings, the way the scenes are set up, or what, but like you said, that movie wasn't teens just going in the woods to be stupid.
Right.
This was something completely different. And when it starts with the parents tying that brick to their ankle and they go out in the water and you realize what's happening.
Yeah.
Man, that movie was so well done. And like I would tell people to go back and watch it now. It's still such a good movie.
Holds up way better than the sequel.
Yep.
Because there is that atmosphere of what's really going on here. What's really happening here. Like,
right.
I'm not going to spoil it for people that haven't seen it, but there is a lot of what are we doing here? What's happening here? What's really going on? So,
and it's just so dark. Like the overall vibe. There are not too many. If you really, even when you watch the movie, it's just gloomy skies the entire time.
Yeah.
There's very little sunlight, a lot of darkness and things like that. They really did a good job on that one.
And like you said, that gothic aesthetic, it almost gives you like a Hammer horror films vibe with the way almost castle-esque with the buildings and walking the grounds with the fog coming up, and
it gave you all of that.
Yeah. So, man, like I said, I had an amazing time with you guys, and having you here really has been awesome. We're gonna have to do this again sometime, but before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. I'll start with you first this time, Nick. We're gonna bounce back to Pet Cemetery, and what we're gonna do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, direction, score, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing is ranking Pet Cemetery on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective, You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Nick,
Okay.
what would your ranking of Pet Cemetery be?
I think I'm gonna go 4 skulls on Pet Cemetery. That movie is one of those that every fall, you know, you got to put it back on. You got to watch it again. It's just got nostalgic characters that are pioneers in the horror community. It has everything that, you know, if you were to go introduce this movie to somebody who's never watched a horror movie before, it's a perfect way to start before you go into some of the movies that we have nowadays that are so incredibly detailed, or now we have universes and things like that. So
Right.
it's good to go in with one film, you know, and really hone in on that film. So 4 skulls, man, it affected me in a great way. It made me a horror fan.
And that's a great answer. So what about you, Yerrty? How People Under the Stairs, 0 to 5? What would you rank that?
I give it a 5 for multiple
Yeah.
reasons. So, as Nick stated, it made me a horror fan. It was the first horror movie, but it also affected me in terms of I was afraid to go outside.
I believe it.
Like I didn't want to go to the store. I didn't want to walk to school. None of it. And then the crazy part is we had this older white lady that lived next door, and she had a Doberman.
Oh,
It was the sweetest dog, but she used to let it roam free. So every time I saw it, I would be like, nope, exactly. So yeah, it kind of affected me in a good and a bad way.
Right. And that's what I love about horror. We all remember our first horror movie. We remember what it meant to us. So I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, make sure you're subscribing to the podcast and following them on social media. All those links are down in the description below. Gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow SledgeHammer Horror on social media. Our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.